No, Rivos. He lied to you and your children about the safety of microwave radiation. Power, huh?
I mean, some people are like really worried about like cell phone towers, thinking they cause like radiation or something poisoning. This is not true.
Yeah, people are worried about 5G, right?
Don't worry about it.
No, not at all.
I mean, no. Like, let me put it this way: like, if I had cell phones, if I had a helmet of cell phones
Right?
strapped around around my head and around my nuts, I would not
You're
worry.
good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met a dude.
Now, in 2021, the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia issued a ruling based on a lawsuit that we filed in 2020. Our lawsuit challenged the FCC when it said there's no need to revise any of the standards that we've had for cell phones or related devices, which were set in 1996. The same limits that were set then should apply now to all of this technology that is going to be unfolding. And what the court did is it actually looked at the evidence. And the most important thing it said is that it could not find any indication that the FCC had actually read the substantial scientific evidence, the evidence on long-term exposure, the vulnerability of children. And the 2021 decision specifically said the FCC had completely failed even to acknowledge, let alone to respond to comments concerning the impact of RF radiation on the environment. Environmental effects have never been considered by the FCC in deciding what the standards ought to be. So as a consequence of that ruling, we're now in a situation where
governments for that purpose. So we weren't surprised when I wasn't able to publish the so far. We look in the house, if you find a location, there's eddies, all that, there's turbo are the ones that follow exactly this set of instructions. It is hardly done with the vitamins and with the other things that we, with the behavioral therapies. They have a minor effect on it. The moment we protect the sleeping location of the child, the autistic children are recovering. Now, I can say that with great levels of certainty now for reasons. One, because I have a large group of people that follow my teaching in Europe. The Europeans, when they hear that, they get the idea and run with it. In America, unfortunately, especially the husbands have become a huge obstacle to this. Most American men never had more than 1 year of physics in school and simply do not have the understanding, but they have strong opinions without ever having understood physics. They have strong opinions about it that this possibly cannot be true, because if it would be true and dangerous, the government would have done something. Well, you make your own opinion after watching this film. So what we did then is a study where we took 10 autistic children and went back to the sleeping location where the mother was when she was pregnant with that child, and compared it with the sleeping location of a mother that gave birth to healthy children. We had 10 mothers in that group, 10 mothers in this group. And in the group of the autistic children, we found that the measurements that we got for the microwave exposure in the sleeping location of where the mother was when she was pregnant with a child was elevated compared to the group of children that were normal. The same measure by measuring body voltage. This is the exposure just to the ambient field, electric field in the home created by the electric wires on the wall. Found the same number, that the exposure, that the electric charge that is built up in the body was by the 10 times more in the sleeping location where the mother was sleeping when she was pregnant with her child. And with that, the exposure to man-made magnetic fields has become the first factor that could be isolated ever in autism that could predict autism. I can go to the home of a pregnant now, take those measurements, and give her a reasonable assessment what her chances are to give birth to a child that will later be diagnosed as autistic. Now, as you can imagine, I was not able to publish the study. Nobody was interested. There was 10 children, was too small group. to say something, even though the differences are so dramatic that even the 10 children led to a huge statistical difference. I wasn't able to publish it because of the special interests that are now have found their way into the medical journals and the peer-reviewed journals. I think it's important to say that now the communications industry has become the largest lobbying industry in politics than big pharma. In fact, by a factor of 3 times more powerful than the pharmaceutical industry, which used to be the most powerful arm, bending.
How were the current FCC exposure guidelines set? As you already heard, they happened back in the 1980s, and they were based on studies on 8 rats and 5 monkeys. And anybody familiar with epidemiology or clinical studies know that you want to get as many large an N as possible, as many subjects as possible. So here we're dealing with 13 animals. And there's a reference here that describes it in greater detail if you want to know that detail. So the assumption was that it's only heating effects that causes the problem. It's not the long chronic effects, which we now know is a problem. It's a problem that's not acknowledged by industry. And so because you're only looking at, or they looked at acute problems in coming up with these guidelines, they only looked at studies that were an hour or less. Now we're talking exposures that we're getting 24/7. To set those guidelines, they only looked at a 1 hour or less. So what was pointed out, to click through these in the interest of time, is that they took these animals that had been trained to push a lever to get food, and they put them in a room, and they were deprived. They put them in a cage and kept ramping up the electromagnetic fields that they were exposed to till the point where they could no longer perform that very simple task of pushing the lever to get food, even though they were starving. So they took that and declared that as being the upper limit for exposure. And then they divided that number by 50. In the case of workers, they only divided that by 10. But for the population in general, they took that upper limit, the point at which monkeys even got burns on their faces from the very high exposure, divided it by 50 and said, that's fine. That's okay for the public in general. This is why I wanted you to see it a second time, because it's just so important and it's so very wrong. So that's where those guidelines came up from. So if you hear anybody talking about FCC guidelines and, well, we're within compliance, this is what they're talking about. It's woefully inadequate. And that safety factor.
And I think what I heard was that with the 5G and this contract,
well, Wi-Fi radiation does all kinds of bad things, including cost.
Okay, something really crazy and sneaky is happening today, and we need parents to do one thing. I'm going to make it really easy for us. The social media companies have been secretly meeting with our lawmakers, convincing them to create this bill or this package of bills called the, which is littered with language that actually benefits them and not our kids. It will literally weaken the protections that currently exist, even potentially make it impossible to sue these companies when our children are harmed on those platforms. So this package of bills called the Kids Act is going to be put for a floor vote in the House of Representatives. So we need parents everywhere to contact your House representative and ask them to vote no on the Kids Act. I'm going to put a link in my Instagram story now with a...
Yeah. Have a big Ultraman out there.
I mean, some people are like really worried about like cell phone towers, thinking they cause like radiation or something, poisoning. This is not true.
Yeah, people are worried about 5G, right?
Don't worry about it.
No, not at all?
I mean, no. Like, let me put it this way, like, if I had cell phones, if I had a helmet of cell phones,
Right.
strapped around my head and around my nuts, I would not.
Yeah, I met a dude.
Situation with